Love that.
Too late. We can't change it. Welcome to Tag Talk. It's so good to see you guys. It's been a while since I've been here. I had a little bit of an emergency last week, but I'm back. Haley and I are on the wrong sides, but we're just going to have to live with that for this episode. But this is going to be such a fun episode. I'm so excited. But before we get into it, Haley, how are you? What have you been up to?
I'm great. I've had a long day, but this is the first week that Kiley's been able to watch BTE, like right when it drops. And so we were watching it together, and we had a different plan for what we wanted to do this week. And I was like, you know what? Scrap that. Like, we're just gonna talk about BTE and the Elite for like an hour. So that's what we're doing, and I couldn't be more excited.
And you know what's really funny? The plan we had was like primarily Bloodline.
It was.
And we were like, forget the Bloodline. Let's talk about the Elite. Because this episode of being the Elite was pretty crazy. And it's just so fitting that's the first episode I can watch. You know, my first week off after the semester, it's the first one I can watch. So this episode, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be a lot of fun. But basically, while we were watching Being the Elite, both Haley and I tweeted just like things about how we're sad the Dark Order isn't on TV, even though they're like a big part of the story on Being the Elite. And there was like a lot of comments from people who were like, excuse me? Like the Dark Order is involved in this? Like Matt and Kenny have like legitimate beef on Being the Elite, and it's true they do. So we're just gonna talk about it. We're gonna have fun because I have a feeling that this Wednesday on Dynamite, both Claudio and Mox are wrestling in different matches, of course, and Kenny's wrestling. Kenny and Mox are having a steel cage match, which is going to be nerve-wracking, but also, probably bloody. I'm sure Don Callis will be there. Maybe Takeshita will be there. I don't know, but Claudio is wrestling Phoenix, and the stipulation is a little weird. It's like double jeopardy. So like if Claudio wins, him and a member of the Blackpool Combat Club get a shot at the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships. If Phoenix wins, just Phoenix gets a shot at the Ring of Honor World Title. So it's a little weird, but I'm into it. We have a super chat from Kate, who is the best, and she says, "You guys are masters at this. Love you both." We love Kate. If you guys didn't hear, I finally got my master's. Finally finished this hell semester. Which, if Tag Talk has seemed chaotic this semester, it's because it was. I was going through absolute hell with my thesis committee, my portfolio committee, a certain person who shall not be named who was trying to ruin my academic career. But it's all over now. And me and Haley are back. And you know what? We're talking about the Elite. And it's just destiny that this is the Being the Elite episode that happens when I can actually watch it and not like scan through 2 seconds before Tag Talk goes live. I literally sit here furiously like, Haley wants the good stuff. I need timestamps.
Timestamps. I'm like, yeah, just like look for this. Like
So that's the plan for today. We're gonna fill you in. If you want your question, your comment, your whatever read on air, make sure to submit a super chat. We'll read all the super chats. And also if there's something in tag team wrestling that you really, really would like to see us talk about, we will. Just submit a super chat and we'll take a little break. We'll talk about it. We have a super chat from Sky. He says, "Looking forward to hearing more about the Elite." Yes! So many of you on Twitter are questioning us about this. Like, Being the Elite gets a lot of viewers, but I think it's just people rewatching Being the Elite a lot because so many of you have no idea that Dark Order is involved in this at all. So we're going to break it down for you. Haley, I forgot where we were going to start.
I believe you wanted to start with like Hangman and Mox and like go back to that and kind of how they bridged to the Elite BCC feud, and then we'll jump from there.
Okay, just to fill you in, while Kenny Omega was out with 900 injuries, like on the verge of death apparently, the Young Bucks, their trio tournament was announced, and their first choice was Hangman, which we cannot forget that their first choice was Hangman because it's a really important wrinkle in the story. Hangman, of course, said no. He went and he teamed with the Dark Order, which was a mistake because it didn't work out. But fast forwarding, Hangman is in this feud with Jon Moxley. And this was like an AW match that no one had seen before, but Hangman ended up getting injured in the match. He had a concussion. His comeback was great, though. He's talking about not remembering his son's name, which is tragic. And he comes back fiery against Jon Moxley. And then we get the BCC heel turn. The Elite are baby faces. And all of a sudden, it's the Elite saving Hangman from the BCC. So that's like the lowdown of stuff that's been on TV. We have a super chat from our dad, Chris, who says, we'll just say this is the money from the birthday card I meant to send you, Kylie. Congratulations on your masters. You're both the best and do a better job chronicling these Elite stories than anyone else. Thank you for the compliment, and also thank you for congratulating me on my masters. And it was my birthday. I had a long week. I had surgery. It was my birthday.
Emergency surgery.
Emergency surgery. My jaw was like gonna die. My birthday. I graduated on Sunday, and now here we are being the Elite. It's like full circle. We come full circle. But I think I covered like the base. I'll give Haley a little bit of time to talk because I've been talking a lot. So, Haley, the floor is yours.
Well, in between all of that, we did see on BTE, and I guess this is like the first point that I wanted to bring up. We did see on BTE when everything was happening with Hangman and the Young Bucks were out because of Matt's injury and stuff, and they were just taken off of TV. There were clips on a BTE episode where the Bucks were kind of watching this happen to Hangman, and the BCC were like, where are your friends? Like, you have no friends. Like, they don't care about you, whatever. And the Young Bucks were so upset. They were so mad. And then the episode had ended with them, like, walking. They were in their houses, but they, like, left off screen. And presumably they were going to show up on Dynamite that week. And they did.
And this is where the Dark Order comes in, which is why I'm really sad this wasn't on TV. So this entire time, the Dark Order have been trying to prove that they are better friends to Hangman. Hangman gets attacked by BCC, and Dark Order doesn't save him, which it's like a big deal in the story because they've always saved each other. So then the Young Bucks and the Dark Order kind of get in this little tiff in the locker room about, who's a better friend to Hangman, who cares more about Hangman. And it's comedic because it's BTE, but ultimately at its core, it's like the Young Bucks who think they're okay with Hangman, who want to be best friends with Hangman again, against the Dark Order, who know that they've messed up and know that they haven't been great friends to Hangman because they're mad at Hangman, and Hangman knows that the Dark Order's mad at him. But now it's like Hangman is still torn between these two groups. But then you have Kenny Omega, who is back. Before, when it was Dark Order versus Young Bucks over custody of Hangman, Kenny wasn't back. No. It was way back before the Trios tournament. So now Kenny's here, and Kenny does not care. Kenny is like, I don't care about Hangman. None of us love Hangman.
None of us are friends with him.
Yeah. And interesting that Kenny and Dawn come back. And Dawn is like in his Takeshita era. I don't know where we're going with that Takeshita thing. We'll get into that later. But Kenny is like defending Takeshita, even against Hangman, defending Dawn, even against Hangman. Meanwhile, the Young Bucks are just like that dramatic scene of Matt watching Dynamite on his phone. And then it's just like his arm brace is just like on the couch. Like, he literally yanked it off and ran to Dynamite to save him.
It's just his phone just on the couch.
So dramatic and for no reason. But Matt Jackson has always been an emotional character. Even in like Ring of Honor and New Japan, and even before that, he's always been someone who's been really driven by love. Nick Jackson, not so much, but Matt.
He's a feral little brother,
Yeah, he's like, what's the name of the kid in Toy Story who like murders the toys?
I forget his name, but Sid, is that his name? Sid?
Yeah, that's Nick.
Yeah.
But Matt is like, and Matt gets so heartbroken all the time. Like, and he's so mad all the time. He's so emotional. And I really, really love that he's sort of center stage in the story. And Haley and I did a video a while back. I have no idea when. I have no idea what it was called. I'm so sorry. But we kind of talked about the feud between the Young Bucks and when Kenny and Hangman were teaming. And it was, we're talking about how that feud was essentially just Hangman versus Matt. So it's interesting now that that's been turned on its head. And now it's Kenny who's like the odd man out.
I agree. It's really been interesting, like you said, kind of how Matt is so integral to this story. Because if you go back and you think about it, like, he was the catalyst for all of this happening, right? And just his emotions getting in the way and his feelings and all that kind of stuff. And now he, like, genuinely wants to make amends and, have his friend back in Hangman. But there's so many, like, factors getting in the way. Takeshita, Dawn, the Dark Order, like, all of these people preventing that from kind of happening. Kenny, even.
And I also, so on Being the Elite, Brandon Cutler, not the Being the Elite theme song. There was a different song that Brandon Cutler made, a sad song. But the message of that song was basically like the Elite is better when it's together and they win when they're together, which is interesting because now in AEW and like the broad AEW universe, the Elite is so big. It's not just Kenny the Young Bucks. It's Kenny the Young Bucks, Hangman. It's Adam Cole. It's Kyle O'Reilly. It's even Jay White to an extent. It's Takeshita. It's Dawn. And maybe Ibushi one day. So there's like so many different entanglements to the story that they've built for like a decade, more than a decade. Like, oh my God, like almost 15 years that these Elite things have been building. And so really seeing that culminate here. And I think it's a lot of fun. And I think everybody should watch Being the Elite because you really do get a lot more of Being the Elite than you do on TV for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't write TV. Sue me. But I do think that eventually the Dark Order will probably be part of the story on TV. Alex Pulowski and I, which go watch Towercraft, we're sort of talking about it on Twitter. And it's almost like now if they just introduce the Dark Order part of the story, that the Dark Order knows that Matt let Hangman win and Kenny doesn't. So that blackmailing element, if they bring that to TV, it's almost like the BCC becomes irrelevant in that regard. So I'm sort of curious how they fit all these puzzle pieces together with Adam Cole and Jay White out there and Ibushi and Takeshita and Dawn being shady. I don't see how the puzzle pieces fit together yet.
Well, and we also have Roderick Strong now too, and we never really got the culmination of the stuff with Adam Cole because obviously he had gotten injured and Kyle had gotten injured and all that stuff happened. But when Adam turned on the Young Bucks, like we never got anything from that either. So I feel like that's gonna come back around soon.
Yeah, and I don't think. So I don't know what the status is on this new AEW show. It's going to be headlined by CM Punk. I don't think we're getting CMFTR versus the Elite anytime soon. And now that this Elite story is like developing in this way, I think CMFTR, like we can do that later. I don't even want that right now. I want this story to really culminate and really come together. So back to Being the Elite. So over the past few weeks, there's been scenes of Matt Jackson on his phone, texting Hangman, almost texting Kenny, but deleting it. And he's been like really indecisive about whether or not he wants to tell Kenny that he let Hangman win at the title match when Hangman beat Kenny for the title. And I really do think it's going to come back and bite him in the ass. I really do think Dark Order is going to be the ones to tell Kenny. I don't think Matt is ever going to muster up the courage to tell Kenny about this because it wasn't that long ago that Cody came in and alienated the Young Bucks against Kenny. And that whole story happened, which I'm sure we've talked about that somewhere. Go find it. It's out there somewhere. So, like, that is still lingering. Like, that wasn't that long ago. It's 2023. That was 2018, I think. 5 years, whatever. So yeah, I do think the Dark Order is going to be like, hey, Kenny, did you see this? So I'm excited for that.
Well, and I think they started kind of planting those seeds in like the past 2 weeks, but especially on this last episode this week, I thought that they were gonna say something. Like when Alex Reynolds the Dark Order had gone into the Young Bucks and Kenny's locker room to talk to Kenny, and Alex Reynolds was like, Matt is keeping something from you. And he was like, Matt who? And he was like, Matt Jackson. And he goes, my Matt? And he was like, yeah. He's like, he's hiding something from you and like whatever. And he's like, Matt would never hide anything from me. Like, there's no way. Like, F off, like whatever. And then basically they had, instead of telling them about the nod and Matt and all that, they were talking about cheesecake. And I didn't expect them to like drop that, but I feel like because then Kenny had confronted Matt, and Matt was like, thought that Kenny knew that the Dark Order had finally like said something. So I thought that like maybe he was gonna, like, the guilt was gonna just come over him and he was gonna be like, listen, I did this, but he didn't. And
it's really interesting. So like, okay, so it's Kenny and the Dark Order in the locker room. The Young Bucks come in and the Dark Order leaves. And as they're leaving, Alex Reynolds has this smirk on his face. Like he is fully aware that he's toying with Matt Jackson. Which is, I feel like that's super important to the story, Alex Reynolds, and it's not on TV. Yeah. Like the Elite BCC feud is totally exclusive of Alex Reynolds. Which, poor Alex Reynolds, like, give the man something. Like, he's been so good on BTE and selling these stories. But, so, Matt comes in. Nick gets kicked out by Kenny. Like, goodbye. And Kenny confronts Matt, and Kenny's basically like, I would never lie to you. Like, I love you. We're best friends. Like, I've never lied to you. And then it turns to the cheesecake thing, but Matt Jackson was scared. He was so scared.
Side eye too. Like
he was not looking Kenny in the eye. He was like maybe this is too niche of a reference, but like when you're at school and you're getting like lectured at by the principal and you're just like standing there.
Yeah.
That's what it was like.
A kid getting yelled at by an adult. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would be scared too, first of all, because Kenny looked massive. In that tank top, he looked jacked. I'd be scared of that, first of all. Not that I think Kenny would like ever beat up Matt Jackson, but the worry's always there.
Threat is there.
It's threatening when a man comes up on you and he's standing real close to you, like whispering in your ear about how much he like loves you and would never betray you when you know that you betrayed him. Listen, I'd be scared too. Meanwhile, Nick Jackson, I don't know where he went. He's presumably standing outside the door. Just doing nothing. I don't know.
Like just staring at the door, like waiting.
Like, what is Nick Jackson gonna be part of these stories?
And like that's the thing. Like Nick has no idea about any of this. It's like purely between Alex and Matt. Nick has no idea what they're talking about, whatever. And they've talked about it in like recent BTE episodes. Nick will be like, "Oh, like what did he say to you? Like what did he want?" And Matt's like, "Oh, nothing." Like, he just like, why aren't you telling your brother? Like,
and they've had the same issue. You remember when Cody was trying to break them up? The T-shirt that Cody designed. He showed them each that shirt, and neither of them wanted to tell the other one because they were scared of rocking the boat.
Yep.
We've been here before. I don't know. But Nick Jackson just being like a side piece to the story is so funny to me. I love when he walks in and he's just like middle fingers up. Like, that was weird. Why was the Dark Order in here? What was the middle fingers up?
The comedic element that Nick brings to BTE is so great. I love that.
It's unmatched. I love that man. But I also wonder if Silver and Evil Uno, on the flip side, if they know that Alex is doing this, because the original threat happened. So they fought over Hangman, and then they're shaking hands, and Alex pulls Matt Jackson in, and he says, "If you don't tell him, I'm gonna tell him," referring to Kenny Omega. So I don't know if Silver and Evil Uno are aware of that either. If this is just a battle of the brunettes, I don't know.
Battle of the
I don't know.
I feel like that's a great question though. And I feel like because like Nick is left in the dark, like maybe this is purely just like an Alex thing and like him just like really wanting to protect Hangman.
I don't know. And then Hangman. So a couple BTEs back, we totally haven't even talked about where Hangman is. There's this scene of Hangman with an eye patch because he got screwdrivered in the eye by the BCC. So he has the eye patch on. He's laying in bed with his little laptop, watching AW. And he basically sees the BCC beating up Kenny, and he's very mad about it. And then he sees the Elite with the screwdriver going after Mox, and then they do the spot with the turnbuckle, screwdriver, and the turnbuckle. No one gets screwdrivered in that scene, but he's smiling about it. So, like, I talked about this, the TAC Talk went after that episode of Dynamite aired, but Matt Jackson is very much of the impression that they are getting revenge for Hangman at that point. And Kenny is very much, I just want to beat up Jon Moxley because I hate Jon Moxley, and we've been in this rivalry for 4 years now. So there's like this tension between Kenny and Matt, and Nick is just there. Maybe they'll find a way to make Nick like some secret dark horse in this. I don't know. He's so scary.
Just because he's so like unpredictable. Like yes. You can't read that man. Like
no, he's so scary. Like in the ring, once you see the ring, I'm like, okay, that's Nick Jackson. But like these BTE skits, like at any point in time, Nick Jackson could throw up his middle finger and tell you to F off, and you gotta live with it.
I'm just waiting for him to like, even though like Matt's not telling him what's going on, like he knows what's going on, and he just blurts it out, like opens his mouth and just goes.
Like he's actually like secretly like super socially intelligent, and he's just like, watching, and he just takes everything in.
Yeah, like I would not be surprised if that's what happens.
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised either. Maybe that's what's happening. But then now we also have to talk about Don Callis. So Don Callis came back with Kenny Omega, which was weird because Kenny Omega, when he came back, and especially when the Elite came back from the suspension, Don Callis is a bad guy, but the Elite are like baby faces. They're good guys. Fans cheer them. So Don Callis being there has always been kind of weird. And then there's all these pictures of him following Takeshita around the world, like stalking him.
And I think we did some stuff on like BTE once or twice too.
Like being an absolute creep with Takeshita. But Don Callis' whole thing is that he goes after the best and brightest to advance his own career. That's why he went with Kenny, and Kenny won the world title, whatever, blah, blah, blah. This is not a Don Callis episode. But now Takeshita is here. Don Callis brings in Takeshita to save the Elite from the BCC. And Takeshita is very much like not a member of the Elite. And he has history, especially with Kenny Omega. But doesn't have Elite history the way that Hangman does, or the way that Kota Ibushi does. So where do you think they're going with that?
Well, first I want to point out like the dynamic differences between Kenny and Takeshita versus the Young Bucks and Takeshita. Like I feel like when the Young Bucks talk to him, like it just seems like unnatural and like unfit. And there was a clip, I forget what BTE episode it was, like 1 or 2 episodes ago, where Matt is talking to him, and he like doesn't want it. Takeshi doesn't want anything to do with Matt. And then Nick comes in and he's like, isn't Matt right? Like, isn't this the best story in professional wrestling? And Takeshi's like, the bloodline's better. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But as far as Takeshita goes, I don't think his stint in the Elite is going to be that long. I am still under the belief that it's all a ruse, and he's really part of the BCC, especially with like Danielson coming back and Takeshita and Danielson not touching in the ring. I don't know. I still feel like he's part of the BCC, and we're going to get a flip sooner than later.
I definitely agree. I I'm looking up a tweet because I tweeted about Takeshita the BCC a long time ago, and I just want to see the date. Okay, yes, it was Takeshita was on a podcast, and he said that he was studying a lot with William Regal, who's no longer in AW, but the BCC. And that was in July. So by July, Takeshita had bled on Dynamite, earned his spot in the BCC, which is like the whole thing, apparently. You bleed with the BCC, you can join the BCC. So I'm almost wondering if Takeshita is brought in as like a secret agent in the Elite. I think Don definitely has like underhanded intentions with Takeshita. I don't think Don Callis would ever bring in someone into the Elite to actually help them.
Yeah.
Especially when he's had his sights on Takeshita and has been alienating Kenny Omega, keeping Kenny Omega from going on the ambulance with the Young Bucks after they were attacked, keeping Kenny Omega away from the Young Bucks, all that stuff. So I definitely think Takeshita BCC is probably happening. As for when it happens and how, I don't know. I almost wish it would happen sooner rather than later, though. That way you can really like, because it's May 8th. I don't think this story is going to culminate at Double or Nothing. I think it's too soon. I think they're really going to drag this through the summer. But getting rid of Takeshita as soon as possible really gives you a lot of momentum into getting Hangman back in here. And then there's like the wild card of Ibushi. Mm-hmm. Because when on Being the Elite, there's that scene when they're in the locker room and Don Callis is like, here's Takeshita. Like, and the Young Bucks are like happy about Takeshita being there because they're the Young Bucks and they're naive and pure and wholesome. And you have Kenny, who's on his phone, who's been on his phone in like every BTE segment for like the last 3 months, who's like, oh yeah, hi Takeshita. Like, I always thought it'd be someone else, referring to Kota Ibushi. So whether Kota Ibushi comes into AW or not, I don't know. I personally think it's more likely now. I don't think that they would do these references if he wasn't coming in. But it would even out the numbers. Mm-hmm. If for like a 5-on-5 situation. So I don't know. I'm not going to say Kota Ibushi's coming in, but like if I had to put money on it, I would.
Well, and I've thought that he would eventually come in. I forget what it was. I think it was during the Best of 7 or something. I don't remember. But Kenny was wearing an Ibushi shirt. Like on AEW. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's weird. That's suspicious. Like,
and it was the shirt. So if you're a New Japan fan, you remember back in the day, New Japan was filming like a little documentary YouTube video. Not a full documentary, but a vlog, I guess, of Kota Ibushi. And he's training with Kenny Omega. And Kenny Omega pulls that shirt out of his bag. And it's like a pristine white t-shirt, not messed up in the slightest. And then on Dynamite, the sleeves are cut off. It's dingy and dirty. So Kenny Omega has presumably been wearing this shirt a lot. And it goes back to Kenny Omega at the beginning of AEW. And his character, his whole thing was like, can Kenny Omega wrestle outside of Japan? When his like whole heart and his whole identity is in Japan. Not just Kota Ibushi, but like everything Kenny Omega did. So I would like to think that he's really been holding on to that and that connection. And now that Kenny's, back in New Japan and doing this Ospreay feud, which is like a whole separate thing from this other story that Kenny Omega has pulled in so many different directions. You don't come back from that many injuries and be like, let's do it again. Run it back. Let's do it again. You don't do that. But I guess if you're Kenny Omega, you do that. But back to the Ibushi thing. I'm like... I'm wondering how they bring him in because on Being the Elite, I think it's very much like Kenny is the only one who is thinking about it. And I think on his phone, you can make the argument that he's texting Ibushi or people who know Ibushi and trying to figure out what's going on. And I don't think that this is on the Young Bucks radar yet or Hangman. So I don't know how they go about doing that.
I don't either. Kylie and I were talking about this earlier. After we watched BTE, we were kind of talking about this episode, and we were discussing like how we would have kind of, Takeshita turn, and then how we would bring in Ibushi into that scenario. And I did kind of like a point that Kiley had made in the text where she was like, maybe they, like, Takeshita turns, and then it's like BCC beats down the Elite, they're outnumbered, and then Kota comes in. Or she did say, like, what if Matt and Hangman kind of conspire together to, like, bring in Ibushi? And I thought that that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, because I do think with all the work that Don Callis has done on Dynamite and Rampage to alienate Kenny Omega and the stuff we've seen on BTE with Matt Jackson keeping the secret from Kenny Omega, I definitely do think Kenny Omega is going to take a step back from the Elite. I think he's going to be heartbroken, one, by what Matt did, and two, by the fact that he kept it a secret for so long. I think there's definitely going to be issues there. And so I wonder if, the Elite are outnumbered because the BCC with Takeshita, they would have 5, and the Elite wouldn't. They would have, the Young Bucks and Hangman. So they would definitely need Kenny. And so my theory was maybe they bring in Ibushi, and that's how they entice Kenny back. If it was like a normal wrestling universe, I would think Cody, but WWE would never. They would never.
Could you imagine? That would be so good, though.
At like All In or something.
I mean, listen, and this is me conspiring and being a little shithead, but listen, with the Young Bucks talking about how much they want to wrestle, the New Day still, and how they want to kind of go to WWE and all that stuff, like, listen, I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I don't think so. They're trolls, but could you imagine?
I wouldn't turn it down. I'd be super into it. I think Cody has unfinished business with the Elite, not just All Elite Wrestling, but with the Elite specifically. And it would be a real shame if that never got resolved on screen. But the Ibushi question is really interesting because Ibushi says that he has all these things he wants to do. He wants to do the school. He wants to do, like, what is it, boxing?
Mm-hmm.
He wants to do wrestling. And he wants to do all these different things. So I don't know how AEW locks him down in a way that they could put him in the story, which is objectively their best story on TV, and not have him be, like, jumping all around the place. But if they can work it out, they can work it out. I'm totally fine with it and totally cool with it. But I do think that this story is, and not to, like, I don't want to, get into tribalism, WWE versus AW stories, but Haley and I talked about the Bloodline, whenever it was, go find it, I don't know where, about how the story was about Jay, and it wasn't so much about everybody else. Like, everybody else was basically staying the same, and it was Jay and Sammy. But this story, the Elite story, very much feels like it's about everyone. Even Nick Jackson, who is on the sidelines of the story, is going to be impacted by it the same way he was back when Cody did this. And I know that they're going to give him his time to, like, do that portrayal, however he decides to do it. I don't know, murder or something. Nick Jackson confuses me. Like, his whole character is, like, vibes. Like, you can't really pin him down, He's like a different man every day.
And we stand. Okay.
I do. I love Nick Jackson. But I do think that like, Hangman and Matt and Kenny and Nick and Ibushi, maybe. And if not Ibushi, I don't know who you put in that spot. Riho?
Listen, yes, absolutely.
I genuinely have no idea. Like, if you don't have Ibushi, like, the only other logical choice is Cody, and it can't be Cody.
And, like, Adam Cole, like,
you could slot Adam Cole in there, but then, like, you'd have to do so much work to resolve the beef with Adam and the Young Bucks.
Yeah, and that whole thing.
And then you have Roderick Strong there, like, what do I do? Like,
yeah.
I just got here.
Poor Roddy.
I don't know.
But I guess that's kind of the nice thing about having a story that is so rich and so deep in its lore, that there's so many directions that they could take it that maybe we aren't even, like, realizing,
Yeah, and I feel like that's why being the elite is so important. And I didn't realize until today how important it was, because I do think if you just watch AWTV, if you just watch Dynamite, forget about Rampage, forget about All Access and all that stuff. If you just watch Dynamite, I feel like you can follow the story cohesively. But if you watch Being the Elite, I really do think like the stories are so much more enriched by what happens on Being the Elite, and not just the elite stories. Like Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon told like a year-long feud primarily on Being the Elite.
Yeah.
And which comes into play in the Elite story. Not to like bring it too far back, but Hangman on Being the Elite had told Brandon Cutler, the Young Bucks are not your friends. They will never ever support you. And they did in the Peter Avalon feud. So the Young Bucks are good friends. So there's so much that happens on Being the Elite, and it seems like a dumb weekly comedy show. And these like a lot of it seems like dumb skits, but it's not. And I think it's I don't know why the stuff isn't on TV. I don't know why the Dark Order isn't part of the story yet, if they ever will be. But Alex Reynolds being a conniving little sneak and playing mind games with Matt Jackson, to me, is an important part of the story.
It could be on TV. It's so good.
And an important part of Alex Reynolds' like character development. Like the Dark Order has always been like these comedy annoying guys who just like go on TV to lose, but like they're beloved, so it's okay. But now we have Alex Reynolds who's being a manipulative little bastard, like genuinely mean and malicious, and blackmailing Matt Jackson, who's a beloved babyface. And they're like, that's not important for this BCC feud. Like, we don't need that on TV. You do.
And I think ever since the Elite came back, I have noticed like a shift in how BTE is kind of directed, and like how the Elite story specifically is kind of filmed. And I do like it more than how they presented it before, if you know what I mean. Like now it kind of feels like a telenovela or like something like that, or like we're getting an episode of, you know, a drama or something every week. And it's not so much like, you know, the comedic stuff that we were seeing before with them. Like we still get hints of that with Nick and stuff and Kenny, but it's more like serious.
And it feels a lot more like old Being the Elite. Back in like the Ring of Honor New Japan days, where they had to use BTE to tell the stories because of like the constraints of where they were and what they were doing. And like there are other people on Being the Elite, by the way. It's not just the Elite. Every week there's like different people.
Ryan Nemeth. Like
Ryan Nemeth, he does this whole Hollywood universe that has nothing to do with anything of what we're talking about, but it's good. There's like vlogs. There was a segment, it wasn't on this week, but it was like a few weeks ago, of Trent Beretta just like pulling fire alarms and stuff, like, and just being a nuisance, which was great stuff. But the Elite, like Being the Elite is all about like the characters in this little universe. It's very much like there's vlog moments, but it's very much like this. You're supposed to believe that this is its own universe, that it's happening inside of AEW, and that everything you are seeing is real, which I love. Because with Being the Elite, essentially, they have unlimited time to tell the story. Like, you don't have to worry about TV time constraints and commercials and like all that logistical stuff, because that segment with Kenny and the Dark Order, and then the transition in Kenny and Matt, that would never be on TV. First of all, because it was sexually lewd. Second of all, because it was way too long. But I loved it.
It was great. But I feel like they could, correct me if I'm wrong, have they not in the past included like little clips of BTE on Dynamite? I feel like they have.
I think they did back when Kenny and Hangman were feuding with the Young Bucks, and they did that whole like you were a jobber in Ring of Honor thing. I think they did there. But they like overall, I feel like they've been really hesitant to include parts of it. One, I do think a lot of what happens on BTE doesn't match like the TV style of AW Dynamite, but I do think there needs to be a conscious effort to like connect the dots between BTE and AW. And there's been a lot of good. Like they have done a lot of that and they've done it very well. I mean, the shining example, of course, is the death and resurrection of Adam Cole, which became part of the beatdown angle on the Young Bucks. The whole like, did you think I didn't remember? Like that whole thing. So that was like great. Because even if you didn't watch BTE, like you might have knowledge that the Young Bucks kicked Adam Cole out of the Bullet Club. So like you have that, but like the resurrection thing, it's just a little wrinkle in the story. But like to me, this Dark Order stuff I think it's like really, really valuable to the story that Matt Jackson is being pressured to tell Kenny Omega what happened. And I think if you just watch Dynamite, I don't think you're getting that Matt Jackson is agonizing over telling Kenny Omega about what he did. I don't think you're getting that. I think you're getting I think you're getting that the Young Bucks are okay with Hangman because we saw that months ago on TV and they're like caught between Kenny and Hangman. But I don't think you're getting that, Matt wants to tell the truth, doesn't know how. I don't think you're getting that Hangman wants to be friends with Kenny again, that he doesn't know how to do that he doesn't know how to cross that bridge. And that to me, like, you need to watch Being the Elite and refresh yourself on these stories. But like the BCC feud, I totally understand why that would be central to wrestling TV. But ultimately, if you look at the BCC, especially because Moxley and Danielson are there, there's so much more story that you could do there that is on BTE. So I'm like, it drives me crazy. And I know there's time constraints and there's not time for everybody on TV. And we only have 2 hours, which might become 4 hours soon. I don't know. But it's like, if you're not going to do this, it's like two different things. And like, sure, the TV version of the Elite story, Elite versus BCC, just that is good. But there's a lot more that you could do here. And I think the part of what makes the Elite, as in, this group, part of what makes them so great is their ability to tell these stories that are so interconnected and interwoven. And I'm just like, do something. You could do like the tiniest little video package and it'd be great.
I agree. And I don't know, even if they were like setting up this story for the future, like I feel like it's still integral to what's going on TV right now.
Yeah, and the Dark Order, like, they're not really doing anything. And like Hangman hasn't been on TV, so like this could be a good way to bring them in. I don't think they would struggle to tell the BCC feud alongside this turmoil of the Elite feud, because that even then you get a good reason for the BCC to beat the Elite because this whole conflict is happening. And I almost feel like you have to, because I don't see how you tell the story of Matt either telling Kenny or Matt not telling Kenny in a way that doesn't include Alex Reynolds blackmailing Matt Jackson. He just like suddenly remembered that this had happened and then he did this thing because he hasn't been acting as though he's upset about this.
Yeah.
To like just someone who watches TV, he's just upset about the fact that his best friends aren't friends. So Tony Khan, listen, or Will Washington, like listen. I have a request. It's a small one.
Listen, he gave us Sheeta.
Listen, all you have to do is connect the dots. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy, but bring the Dark Order into this story. And I'm sure there's plans for that maybe down the road that they'll be part of the story, whatever. But like, I'm watching it happen on Being the Elite, and then I watch Dynamite, and it's like, oh, that didn't happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Matt Jackson is such a good actor that he can come out on Dynamite, pretend he didn't just almost crap himself backstage. You're telling me that Matt Jackson can go out and, be with Kenny and like be cool and not know that he betrayed him? It's Matt Jackson.
The
He's
most
known for
dramatic person.
He's a dramatic person. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very emotional.
Nothing wrong with that. We love emotional men, you know?
He's cried in the ring. He has kissed Kenny Omega in the ring. He has screamed in the ring like every day. We know. And I'm not buying the fact that Matt Jackson, who, you know, comes out on, does a promo or segment or wrestles, I don't buy that he's the same BTE Matt Jackson, because I just saw him, you know, on the verge of tears. And I know he just came out.
Having his pants on BTE, confronted by his best friend, and then you're going to put them on TV together, and they're fine. It's okay.
Totally fine.
They're good.
And I know for a fact that Matt Jackson is in a group chat with Hangman Page and Nick Jackson.
That Kenny left, by the way.
That Kenny left.
And he left.
Yeah, so Kenny knows that Matt Jackson wants to do this, but you watch on TV and it's very much like, carry on my wayward son, like everything's hunky-dory. Like, Kenny knows that Matt Jackson made that group chat.
And now it's, what's it called? Hungbuck 69 or whatever Nick said it was.
Something like that. So, I'm just like, first of all, does Kenny know? And he just doesn't want to mention it? Does Kenny know?
Whole situation.
Yeah, does Kenny know that they chose Hangman before Kenny for the trios tournament? I don't know. And meanwhile, Hangman has an eye patch on and is watching this all go down and ignoring the Dark Order's text. He's not talking to them. So it's like the Dark Order is part of the story, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, Tony. So, like, just put them on TV. It's not hard.
I also want to talk about another important part to this story, the cheese puffs. Listen. So, I don't remember what episode it was. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't know. But Hangman, when he was sitting in bed, Evil Uno texted him. And he was like, hey, like, we haven't heard from you, like, just checking in, like, making sure you're okay, whatever. Like, meanwhile, Hangman's entire text thread with Evil Uno is just like, where's the cheese puffs? Where's the cheese puffs? Like, 20 million times. And then Hangman goes to respond, like, thanks, and he deletes it. And then in the next episode, Uno is kind of talking to the Bucks, and he's like, oh, like, have you heard from Hangman? Like, how is Hangman doing? Like, whatever. And Matt was like, nope, haven't heard from him. Lying through his little teeth. Liar. And then he's like, or they started talking about the cheese puffs or whatever. And then in the next episode, Matt has cheese puffs in his backpack that he takes out of his backpack and he eats in bed. All solemn by himself. So upset. It's ridiculous. But it's my favorite little part of the story.
And it's crazy that something so small could mean so much. And
so
that's like the magic of being the Elite, I think. Because, like, you could never do that on Dynamite because people would be like, where's my serious wrestling?
This is so ridiculous, so cheesy.
If I wanted to watch a teen drama, I would put on Freeform. And that's what they do. That's how they talk. But I don't know. I'm like really, really enjoying all the storytelling happening on Being the Elite. And I'm really, really, really enjoying Kenny Omega on this run he's having, which is like he's just grieving. Like grieving in like every direction. It's like Kota Ibushi grieving. Like he's been grieving Kota Ibushi for years. And Will Ospreay coming at him like 24/7, like 365, like every day. Like that's upsetting. The Young Bucks is upsetting. Hangman is upsetting. So he really has no one. Like even Knack and Brandon Cutler are like better friends now than Knack and Kenny Omega were. Like you're more likely to see Knack and Brandon Cutler doing something than you are Knack and Kenny. So I don't know. I don't know where Kenny goes with his character. I'm super, super excited about it.
I am too. And since he's come back off of injury, we haven't, I mean, like he's done single stuff, but we haven't gotten to see a ton of it. So I'm excited to kind of see how that singles run kind of progresses through the BCC stuff, the Dark Order stuff, all that.
And I also, just because we haven't mentioned it, and we did mention that this episode of BTE was like sexually lewd, but basically the Dark Order come in and it's like innuendo, and you should go watch it. But basically, they offer to be Kenny's friends. Listen, we all know that they have proclivities, that they were sleeping in Adam Cole's bed for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're not friends with Adam Cole, I guess. I don't know. But they offered to be Kenny Omega's friends. And to me, that's significant. I don't think the Dark Order would like offer to be his friend like nonchalantly, because they're Hangman's friend and they know that there's like drama there. So, manipulative Alex Reynolds, like take him aside. But Evil Uno and John Silver, like, I think it's genuine that they want to be friends with Kenny Omega. And I just know that Alex Reynolds is going to break their heart.
And it kind of feels like a Don Callis situation. But like Alex is Don. You know what I mean? Like trying to like scout these like vulnerable, upset people and like exploit them and bring them into the Dark Order.
I think it's very much a situation of like the Dark Order hasn't had a lot of luck recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Anna Jay is gone. She's in the JAS. Most people in the Dark Order are now gone, and they haven't recruited anyone else. And I also think he's probably tired of losing all the time.
Yeah.
I think Alex Reynolds is not like John Silver and Evil Uno, where he's just content being, a good guy, having fun, doing all that stuff. I think he's very much a guy who has like high wrestling ambitions. And I think in a lot of the segments where Alex and Hangman are on BTE, I think that comes across, especially when Hangman is like working for the world title and wins the world title. I think Alex has always been ambitious in that same way, but just hasn't had the same level of success. So in a way, it like mirrors the Hangman story of Hangman in the Elite, seeing Kenny Omega getting all the success, seeing the Young Bucks getting all the success, and Cody, and not being able to do it himself. So there's like so many like parallels between Alex and Hangman that the Alex and Matt feud feels natural because of the Hangman and Matt feud that we just saw.
I agree. And I also wanted to talk about, because I was taking a sip of my water while you were talking and I thought about it. The past couple episodes of BTE, Kenny has been drinking out of a water bottle, but when he's drinking, he's like covering it like this. And it's like a mysterious liquid, and I don't know what it is or what it means, but I'm scared.
I'm like, I don't know, because, okay, BTE is drug-free. Everybody knows that. Straight edge boys. But we did start this episode with Kenny Omega on an IV. Just throwing it out there. Either it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like super energy drink, and
it's like
he's
a super
like,
serum, like he's a freaking Avenger. Like
he's like, I want to be Captain America or like Captain Canada. And so I'm going to drink this liquid, but like no one else can know about it because BTE is drug free. And like the way he's drinking it too. He's like chugging it. He's chowing down. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like antidepressants.
But listen, like maybe that's why he's so big. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's this drink that's just making him stronger and bigger.
It's super juice. It's like go-go juice. You remember back when AW first started, when they were doing that thing with Hangman that he needed to be full gear ready?
Yeah.
Maybe this is Kenny's full gear ready moment. I don't know. But it's like the way that he's drinking this. Kenny's been so weird on BTE. First of all, there's been more Kenny recently, which the last, like, I mean, if you take out the part where he was gone, like, he hasn't been on BTE this consistently in a long time. But he's always on his phone. He's drinking his random drink. He's, like, distracted. He's doing push-ups. He's, like, going into his match and leaving. So it's like, what is going on in that man's head?
And I think the only time we saw him on BTE after he got injured was, I don't remember what episode it was, but he was like at home and they were like talking about the full gear stuff, but like Kenny had no idea what they were talking about. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was like a brief little moment. But yeah, you hadn't seen him on BTE until obviously he came back. And he still wasn't like super consistent, but like he's appearing a lot lately.
I'm really into it because I'm certified Kenny Omega girly.
Really, I never would have guessed.
Never would have guessed. And I'll take Kenny Omega like on BTE anytime because like the little glimpses we get of him doing push-ups before a match or like in a match and Brandon Cutler's like narrating, which I miss. I love Brandon Cutler's little narrations. I love also when you watch back a match and you can see Brandon Cutler with his camera and he's like filming the match. It's so funny. It's like anyway, I love Brandon Cutler. Everybody knows that. But to me, I think that means like the story's really like getting going. And I'm not making promises, but I think like this Dynamite will be really, really interesting. One, because of the Claudio Rey Fenix match, which Claudio has been doing stuff in Ring of Honor that's like secondary to all of this. But the Lucha Bros have, you know, the connection to the Young Bucks. I wouldn't be surprised if Claudio wins this and the BCC ends up with the Ring of Honor tag belts, maybe Claudio and Yuta, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But then also this cage match with Kenny and Mox, which a cage match or like a stipulation like that, a lot of those are like blow-off matches. Like that's the end of the feud. But you and I mentioned this on In the Weeds, whenever that was, whenever we were on that. That it very much feels like this is going to be like big matches, big matches, big matches. Not at like a best of 7, but like they're going to do a lot of gimmicks because it's like this is a blood feud and it's hardcore. And you know how Kenny and Mox get. So like if they just did Kenny versus Mox, like that's a downgrade. Like we've had Kenny and versus Mox in unsanctioned match. We had Kenny versus Mox in a barbed wire death match. Like you can't just do a regular match at that point. So I'm excited for that match, but also for how Kenny comes out of that match.
Me too. And I think we mentioned this too when we were on In the Weeds, but like how the Young Bucks kind of play into that as well. And you know, like their thing kind of being gimmick matches as well. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they kind of get tugged into that if we maybe get like some tag team stuff as well. I don't know. I'm really interested in the feud. Gotta say.
I also just have to say this. When the Elite are all reunited, we need a special Wrestlers on the Road ordering room service. Listen, I missed that series. Wrestlers on the Road ordering room service was so good.
Listen, I love it, but we need to bring it back. So anybody watching, tell them to bring it back, please. Tony Khan, if you're watching, please. Will Washington, somebody here can make it. Somebody at AEW, please.
They stopped it because it was COVID, but like you could do it now. Like vaxxed and ready. Like let's go.
Period.
Like there's so many that they need to do. Like one with Adam Cole and Roddy. Like that'd be so good. And you could use that like to tell more stories.
And if when Kyle comes back, we can get like a
no Robert Fish. Robert Fish is not allowed. He can eat his food in the hallway.
You know that picture of Hangman in catering that
that's Robert Fish
tweeted? That's gonna be Bobby Fish, yeah.
Yeah. Robert Fish doesn't know this, but I have beef with him. And I don't even know why. I just do. Yeah. Where's the lie? I don't know. Where is it? I'm sorry, Bobby Fish. Maybe one day I'll sort it out. My distaste for Robert Fish. And I used to really like him, but then one day I was like, it's Robert Fish.
What an episode this has been. Truly.
This has been like, it feels like this was like 2 seconds, but we're coming up in an hour. So Haley, I'll let you do your final thoughts.
Oh, my final. I can't even speak.
You said Lionel?
I don't know what I said.
Lionel Richie in AEW?
Anyway,
Wow.
My final thoughts. You know, I think my final thoughts for this week, I'm just gonna say I'm just so happy that Kiley is back. We've had a lot of like turmoil with this show. You know, me going off and having a depressive episode, and Kiley having to kind of take the gears, and then just health stuff getting in the way. But I'm happy that we're kind of like back on track, and we get to do this. And again, like Kiley said at the beginning of the episode, we want to do more kind of standalone episodes like this that don't revolve so much around news week to week. So if you have anything that you want to see us talk about, you can leave it in the comments, whatever. But we definitely want to start doing more of these because I like the kind of format.
I do too. And I feel like this one was kind of spur of the moment because we had a plan, but then BTE happened, and all of a sudden it was like, this is so much more interesting than the Bloodline. Sorry, Bloodline. But basically, we wanted to do this, and I'm glad we did because I've had a lot of fun sitting here talking with you guys. And I genuinely do think that, well, one, I was surprised that so many people didn't know about all the stuff happening on BTE. And two, I think it really, wrestling is about stories. And I think giving people all the information about the stories that we can is important. So I had a lot of fun doing this. Haley, do your plugs.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at HaleyN_. Still working on that cookbook. It should be finished this month. So when that happens, I'll let you guys know. I also have a Substack that I'm currently working on a few posts for. It's called The Wrestling Muse. You can subscribe on my Twitter. It's free. And also, I just made an account on the Cloud app, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. I posted it on Twitter, but it's the same username as my Twitter. So, also, Colby, I love you too. I love how you only super chat me and not your sister.
It's a shame. I wish I had family support. I'm alone. I'm like Hangman leaving the Elite. Out on my own, gonna be world champ. Sorry. You can follow me on Twitter at @Fuller_Kiley. If I do a show, I'll post it there. I have nothing else really interesting happening. I just finished the semester, so I'm hopefully going to be doing some fun things this summer. So follow me on Twitter to hear more about them. And this is Fightful Overbooked. This is a channel with a lot of shows that cover a lot of things, wrestling, non-wrestling, and different aspects of wrestling, fashion, more news side of things, drama side of things, story side of things. So there's something here for everyone. So subscribe to Fightful Overbooked. If you're watching this after we go live, hi, you're welcome. Oh, I couldn't swallow for a second. I thought I was going to choke live on air. That was scary. I was going to say, you're welcome to be here. Like this video, comment below. Comment below like your thoughts on the Elite and everything, but also like ideas for standalone episodes like this, because we can do the news every week and we can talk tag team news every week and it could be fun. But I think after WrestleMania, I think most people have realized that WWE tag team news has kind of been like on the decline. Like I told Haley earlier, maybe I don't think this is an unpopular opinion, but it might be a little tense. My interest in the Bloodline has like it's there. Like I'm just not into it. But I would love to do more standalone episodes like this. And it could be about anything that you guys are interested in. Not just AEW. Huh?
I said even the Bloodline.
Yes. If we can end it at WrestleMania.
Period.
Not just AEW and WWE either. Like anything you want to talk about.
Anything.
Fightful Overbooked plugged. Yeah. I think I covered everything in the big plug. It's like I'm racking my brain trying to remember how to do it because
it's been a couple weeks.
A couple weeks. But yeah, I was so glad we did this episode. This BTE was so good. Everybody go watch BTE. Stop not watching it. You know, so sure, Dark Elevation, they're over now, but like you didn't need to watch those. But like BTE, it's like 20 minutes. Watch it. Do it.
That's the real final thoughts this week. Watch BTE.
Yeah. What are you doing with your life? You have 20 minutes to watch BTE. You're in the shower? Why? Watch BTE.
You're working? So what? Take your phone out and open YouTube and watch BTE.
Yeah. You know what? You're making dinner? Who cares? Order takeout. Watch BTE. See you next week. Oh, same time, Monday, 3 p.m. Right here. Fightful Overbooked. See you.